Hello and welcome to this episode of Bush Footy Legends. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that this podcast is being recorded on the traditional lands of the Noongar people and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. The show is brought to you by Magic Studios and is presented by Country Football WA in partnership with Healthway, promoting the Think Mental Health message. For more information on the partnership or where to find support, make sure to check out the WA Footy Wellbeing Hub. The link is in the show notes. If this episode triggers anything for you, if you're worried about someone or just need to speak, please call Lifeline on 131114 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 4636. I'm your host, Jackson Barrett. Let's get into it. Unlike many of the guests on our show, you probably haven't heard of Linda Kelly, but she's a country football trailblazer, a pioneer in the women's game, and someone who has turned to sport to keep her grounded in the tough times. Linda, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are still playing. You're very proudly wearing the Dampier Sharks top
Yes.
today, and I believe you had a win on the weekend.
Yes, I am still playing. I am 54 years of age and yes, still playing and being competitive in the sport. And yes, we had a win over at Karratha for the Dampier Sharks, and we're in the grand final this weekend.
It's very exciting. Tell us a little bit about the Dampier Sharks. What's the club like? It's a bit of a powerhouse in that part of the world. Is it a strong country footy club to be at?
So I messaged. I was going over to Karratha for life in the life of the rail for work, and I messaged Shelley whether it's worth bringing my boots over just for training, just for a kick. And she goes, "Oh, we got training tonight. Come down." Yeah, sure, bring your boots. But since starting with, and I enjoyed it, and since I started training with the Dampier Sharks, they're a young side. They're strong, they're physical, and I'm just amazed how competitive they are, given majority of them are young and 30, 40 plus years younger than myself. But yeah, look, this Dampier Sharks team is a force to be reckoned with. They've got a great support team behind Dampier. I forgot what year it established. I think, sorry, I couldn't remember. I know it was there somewhere, but look, they're a strong team, and they've welcomed me with open arms and taken on the knowledge that I may have passed on to them. And I thoroughly enjoyed playing for them.
Linda, tell us a little bit about how football started for you. So you were one of 9 children growing up. So was football always part of the family, or was it something maybe you came to a little bit later in life? How did that passion start for you? Well,
growing up, like you said, one of 9. I'm the third oldest of 9 children, 5 girls born before the 4 boys. And as going through school age, I was a typical tomboy. I just enjoyed physical contact and playing sports instead of walking around and, gossiping and stuff like that. I just wanted to go and play. And that's what the boys allowed me to do, just go and play. And they, they took it to me as well. If they were going to bump me, they were going to bump me. And I took it, so it was fair bump, play on. And so that was at an early age. Having also my dad, who had passed away when I was 16 years of age, he was a big input, inspiration to me growing up. When he was younger, he was a boxing, he boxed in the Collie PCYC, and he even had the chance to go over to represent Australia for boxing, which he didn't at that time. But look, I played every sport back then, and playing football with the boys up there, because they riding on their shoulders, the boys' shoulders. It wasn't until I moved to Perth when I actually got to play. Because back in the country, the women's or the girls didn't play football back then, given my age and stuff. So going to Perth had already had, the competition going there for women. I played for the Forestfield Hawks,
Yep.
For a couple of years, and then that's when I represented WA in 2005. So I just love the challenge of all sports. It's not just footy. I just love the challenge of all sports, and footy gave me one of the opportunity to represent my state.
Were you someone that watched a lot of football growing up? I mean, growing up in the country, were you at the footy club as a kid and sort of lurking around, or were you watching what you could on TV?
Look, anything to do with balls, I was there. I love the back in the day, the fisticuffs and watching those, and just the sheer the dedication that people put into the hard work. You can see that has paid off for people. So I was there watching and learning, I should say. You could say that I was learning at an early age by taking things in, and so I don't know. Yeah, I enjoyed playing footy at a younger age, and even now, still doing it.
Linda, tell us a little bit about what sort of an impact your dad had on you when you were younger, and what life was like when he passed away in your teen years.
Well, the impact. I mean, 16 years with Dad. It was. He was my hero growing up. I playing against the sisters, because like I said, the 5 girls born before the 4 boys, playing against the sisters, because we weren't allowed to be in the same team, because if the family goes, there goes the whole team.
Yeah.
So getting Dad's attention, and if you played well, Dad will praise you up, and I think I maybe started being a bit of a show off back then. So just knowing the struggle that my parents both went through, and still, and looking after the 9 children, and we weren't exactly well off financially. There was many times that we weren't even able to have food on the table, and just making sure that us kids had something on the table. That I admire my dad for doing that. Even whether it's going out hunting or whatever it is, or just going fishing.
You obviously have a real passion for sport, which has already sort of shone through here. But tell us about when you sort of needed it, how big an impact sport had in sort of more difficult times, to be able to have an outlet and run around and be physical and that sort of thing. Was it a big part of your life in that sense?
Yeah. Sports has definitely has kept me grounded. Sports in general has kept me grounded. I mean, I haven't mentioned this to you earlier, but when I was 19, after my dad had passed away, I went off the rails, turned to drinking alcohol, smoking pot, and just being a rebel. And so within the next 3 years of Dad passing, I'd got into trouble with the police and ended up in women's prison. So that was Dampier Women's Prison. So I ended up there, and at that time I had a young boy, James, and my daughter Rebecca. Rebecca was only 6 months old, and living in Collie, and the prison was in Perth. It was hard for the family to bring my children up to visit, so I didn't get to see them, and that was the time where I snapped and said, well, this is not what my parents would have wanted, or, what's good for my children. And so just like I said, sports has kept me grounded. Having that background and the support from all clubs that I've played, whether it be netball, basketball, softball, and football, it has kept me grounded. And I had the choice, either go off the rails or stay off the rails, or, go this direction, which I chose the good side, which is, I'm glad that I managed to do that, But as for coming through the hard times, like like just recently, my son had passed back in 2018. I was playing footy. I was doing really, really well. I was fitness was pretty good at a good standard. Playing here, training with the men's town's football team and Tigers. And I was actually training with all the team here in Tom Price, Panthers, Tigers and Towns. And then what had happened with my son, that bad news. Look, I went off, it was so hard. And the footy family, they kept me intact and kept my mind busy. And, it was so hard. Mind you, I did go off the rails for a little bit. I'm talking about mentally. My mind was gone. I went through a stage where I hated the thought of living. I hated the thought waking up, breathing. I hated I knew exactly how I was going to leave the earth. And but luckily, I went to my son's shrine, and I actually apologized for having those thoughts in my head, and apologized for not going there. So I asked my son if he can guide me through the next chapter. And so I wasn't playing at that time because of also because I stepped down from playing after that had happened. I wasn't playing because my marriage has broken down. So there was a lot of things. My mum having in the later stage of dementia. So there was a lot of things happening at that time. And I'm just so thrilled and thankful that the sports have grounded me and just allowing me to wanting to live, as well as my 12-year-old daughter. So I've still got her as well. So, that's given me the opportunity to just succeed in whatever I have to do now.
Linda, in that period after your son passed, I believe you weren't playing, but you turned to umpiring.
That's right. Yes.
Can you talk us through sort of why you made that decision and how important it was to stay involved in the game, even if it meant that you weren't training and fully committed to playing? You sort of found another outlet to be involved.
Yeah, I did. I mean, look, I was watching the men and they were short and having numbers of somebody to umpire. So spoke with Vicky Agnew and took on that opportunity and to be accredited. And that just, and maybe it might be a bit of a power thing over the men, I don't know.
Bit of control.
Bit of control. But no, it's not like that. My son does, well, he did at the time when I first started. He did play for Towns Football Club here in Tom Price. Now he's the coach. It was a challenge for me being a female and having my son playing for one of the local football clubs, and people was biased, thinking that I was going to be biased, and yet I was the opposite. I was anything but lenient on him. So if he came, he knew that, and people actually saw that. So I just took it on board by just getting all those necessary training under my belt, and such as going to the country championships down in Perth last year. Look, it's just having that opportunity and a different perspective of the game. As a player, we can all yell at the umpire or think that we got the right decision, but when you got that whistle in your hand, and when you got 15 men in total in front of you, and there's a ball there somewhere, you've got to get yourself in the right position and stuff. So it's all about setting yourself up so you can see the play. And
Linda, you mentioned before when things weren't going so well, just how important people around football clubs were. Do you have any examples of exactly how the football clubs sort of helped you stay on the right track and helped you when things weren't going quite so well?
Examples? Oh, look. Well, everybody's sort of involved with sports around town here and in Tom Price, and just having them to talk to you. They even, allowing me to talk to the football clubs before the games, talk to your mate. And I did give my speech about my son, and, getting that off my chest helps me. And then having grown men come up to me, thanking me, and then it shedded lights on them, how they were feeling as well, of their thoughts, that they were in that deep, dark spot as well. And so, I know I've helped a couple of people who, after my speech, they started talking to people as well. So, it was just an all-round footy thing that they got around me. So it was just an all-round effort, I suppose.
We're really big here on making sure that people can talk to their mates and using football as a mechanism to encourage that. But how important was it for you having people that you could, and it sounds like you were quite open and spoke quite honestly about it as you're doing here. How important is that for you to make sure that you're not sort of bottling things up?
Well, it pays if you bottle things up, as you can, like I did at the beginning, it could be devastating, and having the worst outcome. But just having that support, it was so important to help me to talk about things. And because, if you do bottle things up, it does tear you apart in the end. So I'm just glad that I was able to speak to people regarding that.
Hey, I don't want to skip over what you did on field. So you touched on it before, but you played for WA in 2005. 2005 it's more than a decade before the AFLW started. It's more than a decade before the WAFLW started. What was women's footy like in the early part of the century and going to a national carnival? What was the standard like? Did you know many of the girls? What was the professionalism like? Sort of talk us through it.
Yeah, well, see, like I said earlier, I came up I was travelling. It was only recently that I had started living in Perth when I started playing for Forestfield Hawks. And so I didn't really know too many people, but, I'm very open, and I'm easy to catch up, talk to people, even people I don't even know I will chat to. But the standard was, back then, the crowds, it was a less crowd. I suppose the physique of the people has changed compared, a lot. Whereas these days it's quite, you're getting sponsorships these days. And so you need to perform a little bit better compared to back then. It was mostly for fun. Back in the Nationals, it was very competitive compared to like the WA team. We were competitive in the competition, but the Eastern States were so far ahead, and it shows, so good on them. But now, as you can see, the WAFL, the AFLW with the Dockers, they perform really well, and take my hats off with to those guys. Just seeing the difference from how it used to start, how it had started, to now, and the recognition that the girls are getting, it's just, I'm excited for them, and I'm excited for women in sport in general.
When you look at it now, can you believe, like, even so we're recording this the day after the AFLW Derby, and Fremantle Oval, there were queues outside. People couldn't get in until quarter time. Can you believe that you're seeing that sort of thing now?
Oh, look, that's just great. That's awesome to see. Yeah, when I remember when it first started, the AFLW, and just hearing people chatting on the side, you had little bits of here and like, oh, women's in sports, you're always going to get that no matter what. But these women have shown to the rest of the world, Australia, that we're a force to be reckoned with.
And I know that one of the sports you played when you were a bit younger was soccer. Can you believe, like, the Matildas over the last few weeks? And hopefully that has a flow-on effect to AFLW and some other sports. But for women's sport, that's right up there with Kathy Freeman moment sort of stuff, right? Like, it was pretty incredible for this country.
It definitely is incredible. It's just like a stepping stone, and being, with Australia's highest becoming fourth. That's the highest they've ever been, and they could have even got even further. But that's just incredible to watch and to see the amount of crowd. Oh my gosh, it was just crazy. I went to work one day knowing that Australia was playing. Oh, who were they playing? I think it might have been Canada. And I turned the radio off. Didn't talk soccer. I said, do not say, obviously before they mentioned, I said, do not tell me the scores, please. Do not say anything. So I watched it, and it was worth watching. I'm glad that they won in the meantime. But look, and the results was and watching Sam Kerr come out, and the crowd. I think I had tears with excitement watching Sam coming out in the field, and the crowd just roar. And Sam being Western Australian girl, what else? Yeah, couldn't get any better.
We love the WA girls. Linda, one of the things that you've done that's had a real impact in your part of the state up there is you started the Women's League in Tom Price. What sort of football was available to women in Tom Price when you got there, and then how did that come to you starting the Ashburton Football Association?
When I first got here, because I got here December 2016, and so the following year, the girls were just playing. Oh, who wants to put up on this discussion page? Who wants to play footy this weekend? Let's make a number 6 aside, 7 aside, or whatever it was, a small field, and that was fun. I enjoyed it, and then then the lady left. And then someone else took over, just, taking on the reins of making sure a couple of girls come down and play. And then the AFLW started. And then I thought, this is our opportunity to make women's football, AFL, known up here in the Pilbara. Well, in Tom Price at least. So I got to speaking with Vicky, and she said this would be great idea. And I had Mel Mulhall from the Shire office, who works in the Department of Community. She was was a Community Development Officer. That's who she was. That's correct. Mm-hmm. And with her support and helping, filling out, making the Ashburton Women's Football Association, and the reason why I did that also is that we were missing out on fundings. To make it a club, to make it a real good association. And so to get some fundings, and that would have, at the time, would encourage more people to play, because that was my thought. And so that's why I started it. And all of a sudden we're getting all these fundings and support from all over the place. And now we had a very strong association at the time. We were playing against then when Karratha was just starting off as well. They didn't have the 3 strong teams that they had there at the moment. Like I'm talking about Dampier Sharks, Cats, and Falcons. They didn't have any of that. They only had the one team, and Headland only had the one team. So so we were playing against those girls every week, as well as playing here in the, not every week, but every once a month or something like that. I can't remember, but just it was like a round robin between the 3 towns, and the Ashburton Women's Football Association was really strong back then. Started to get strong and encouraged a lot of young girls from school, and trying to, and the teachers and the mums, and that was what I was aiming for as well. And yeah, so now, as you can see, that the Dampier, the North Pilbara Football League is just shining now with 6 clubs for the women, so that's great. But the Ashburton, unfortunately, merged into the FNFL, and now they've just started off a little bit slow, which is fine. You got to start off somewhere, and we come underneath the men's banner, and hopefully by next year it would get a little bit stronger.
Are you hoping now that clubs are tied to the men's clubs that there might be a little bit of a surge. So you mentioned a bit of a slow start, but I think generally across the board when they're linked and you get that whole of club atmosphere, it's a bit of a boost.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. And the thing is, like being Tom Price and being a small town, just trying to get the numbers down. Whereas, it should get a little bit stronger. Hopefully by next year, we're just going to. I'm sure the girls are going to work. All the club, the association is going to work on that.
And Linda, one of the other things that you do now is you talk in schools about self-esteem and being positive role models for the community, and you're across the state and in remote communities and that sort of thing. Can you tell us about your work in that space?
Yeah, well, actually, it's not now that I do it across the schools and the communities. It was my previous before when I was living down in Perth at the time. Right. Look, I played back those days. I played for Western Australia. I played softball, soccer, Aussie rules, and I also done boxing. So, actually before the boxing, I was at a high school, Kelmscott Senior High School. I was talking to the whole high school, and I mentioned to those guys. I was speaking that I had softball and soccer. I'm looking for one more sport to take on to represent WA. And after my speech, a guy came up to me and he asked me. He said to me that he's a personal trainer for boxing, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he goes, would you like to take on boxing? I'm like, sure, sure.
Why not?
Why not? So within 10 months in total that I had done boxing, 10 months, I'd represented WA, got Golden Glove over in the Nationals in Melbourne, then represented Australia over at the Oceanic Games and the Worlds in Turkey. So, wow. Having the sporting achievements that I've achieved allowed me to go into schools, communities, and just speak about my achievements as well as goal setting and self-esteem. Like basic, especially goal setting. We've got that choice, and I have mentioned to them that you can either. I've told them that I've been to prison. I wasn't, especially the older kids. They'll be sitting down and I'll be talking to them, and they'll be sitting down with their heads down. As soon as I mention prison, their heads lift up. I'm like, good, I've got you. And I will go on that. I will elaborate a little bit more on which direction you want to choose. So I'm hoping that I've turned things, some kids around by that, because a lot of people think that, you're a sports person, you haven't had it hard or anything like that. Mind you, all these years that I've done of sports, I was a single mother, so I raised 4 children. So at the time, biologically, I had the one, but I raised my 2 nephews since they were babies, as well as my niece since she was a baby. They're all in their 30s now. And, so telling people that you can still do it. A lot of people these days can say, well, you hear, oh, I'm a parent now, I'm a mother now, I'm a father, I can't do it now. Or I used to be good at sport at school. I'm like, well, they're talking to the wrong person. I'm trying to encourage people to, this sport has given me where I am now, mentally and physically. Like physically, I was a little bit sore when I like I said earlier, I was a bit sore with injuries and putting on weight because of the loss and stuff. So coming back to play now, it's given me that purpose of wanting to get fit and lose weight, so I can actually just show it to these girls, but or take it to the younger girls. Which I'm still being very competitive. No, look, just going into the schools, just giving this opportunity to get these kids to hear what it's really like, not just from sporting perspective, and the ups and downs that I've been through all my life, and still managed to allow sport to carry me through. Because I think if I didn't have sport, it could have been a lot worse.
Are you someone that sort of relies on physical activity? Like, do you feel better during a week if you've had a kick and a bit of a run around, and you sort of rely on it a little bit? Because I know lots of the athletes that we have on here say something pretty similar.
Well, that's right. And that's what I'm saying is, my oldest daughter used to laugh at me because the way I was running. And at that time I had a hamstring injury. I was still playing. I was umpiring, but I still had a hamstring injury. And, I loved just getting out there, and I got my own ball and get out and down the oval and just having a kick and just challenge yourself, like kicking left foot, kicking right foot, get on that angle and just getting on, just practicing. Like, when I was back in the day when I was playing softball, I'm a natural right-hander. And in 1993, my coach, Bruce Freeman for Bunbury City Blues, I used to travel from Collie to Bunbury to play anyway and train. And he taught me to bat left because of my speed. He taught me to bat left, and we would bunt, do all sorts of bunts, slap bunt, push bunt, sacrifice bunt, running bunt, all those bunts. So for a whole year, I would stand in front of a mirror after what he was teaching me. Then I'll stand in front of the mirror and watch my technique, watch my mechanic, what's the mechanical side of the body, in front of a mirror, watching my footwork, where's my hands, where's my head, and all that stuff. And that's the same with football. That allows me to get out there, just have a kick, and just keep my fitness up. Just keep my fitness up. Being this age, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, when am I going to drop?
I was going to say, how much football do you have left in you? So a grand final this weekend. Have you got a couple more seasons?
I think so. I was telling my sister earlier, I was saying that I just need to shed another, a bit more weight off, and I want to play in the midfield. I want to play in the midfield. So that's my goal at the moment, is to shed some weight, work on my fitness, and get in that midfield.
Beautiful, Linda. Hey, we really appreciate some of the stories that you've shared today. You've been incredibly open and honest and generous with your time. So we appreciate that, and thank you very much for joining us, and good luck for the grand final as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bush Footy Legends. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you like, follow and share it with your mates. Make sure you check in on them while you're there. For tips and advice on how to look after yourself, your family and your mates, visit thinkmentalhealthwa.com.au. Get in touch with us through our Instagram page at WA Country Football, or if you want to suggest a guest, email us at wafc.com.au. If you're after more, stay tuned. We'll have an episode dropping every week.